of stuff, a lot of stuff. The guy is a very intelligent man. He puts out all kinds of stuff, very controversial, very like what I call mind trippy. He's basically put out a collection of almost Aryan occult history without calling it Aryan occult history. It's basically pretty interesting stuff, but he went into some of these pyramid experiments in the Soviet Union in much more detail than I've ever seen in one complete collection. And well, a lot of it, maybe you know that there's a lost book of the Bible. It's probably not lost, but it's called the Lord's War, the War of the Lords, the Lord's War, or something along those lines. Well, he talks about the gods going to war, and different episodes of the Rig Veda and the books that come before it. But if you're interested in that type of thing, Joseph Farrell has written some stuff talking about all this stuff in a very direct but indirect way. I mean, he's not talking about white rabbits, but it is. It has everything to do with us on some level. If you don't believe me, I suggest you read what Indra looked like. Indra's, his title, by the way, is the Lord of Heavens. But that's something you should know about. That's when our green goddess came out in 1680s. And she started trouncing around. Now, of course, with the Vikings, you could say she got out. With the Phoenicians, she probably got out. With the Romans, our green goddess got out. But since 1685, she's been out jumping around. It's like this type of light, she can survive forever. Something in us clicked. If you're ever around other countries like the Muslims and whatnot, different groups that have read books like Mein Kampf night and day, they will constantly ask you, if you're European, what happened to us. Because everyone on this, the Muslims were very advanced at one time, and they did very well for themselves. They had a huge slave trade, so on and so forth. But we have left many people on this planet standing still. It's just not even a close call. And since 1950, of course, you got the Japanese and whatnot, and we have just gone vertical. So much so that most people listening to this won't even realize how far we've come. We just take it for granted, and it is kind of shocking. But it has everything to do with the spectrum of light that you've heard called the black sun. But it isn't it's a latent sun. It's a certain type of energy, a certain spectrum of light, and it has nothing to do with the great central sun, but yet it does. Some have said that we are triumph sun, or three suns. The sun you see in the solar system, which is, of course, 99% of our solar system is made up of that big yellow ball you see in the morning. And if you don't see it, there won't be any life around. Then there's another sun that emanates from the Milky Way, or they call this great central sun. Then there's that sun you can't see, that latent sun, that blasts out of Orion on some level. Or just blast. Maybe it comes out at a higher rate or something. I don't know, but we do know that in 1685 this celestial event started happening, and lo and behold, we woke up. And we woke up with a fury. Our green goddess came out. Our Godzilla came out, and that's what I always tell the Muslims when they ask me what happened. I said, we got our Godzilla. Our Godzilla's out running around. I don't know what to do. You don't want her playing in your backyard. We don't want her playing in your backyard too. But obviously, in 1950, she got her full fire-breathing capabilities. Yes, she did. She's not just running around with shooting a little musket now. Our green goddess is there. She's growing, and who knows what she's capable of into 2012. But this spectrum of light we're coming into has not been seen here in over 20 some thousand years. It's a big event, and obviously since we led the way into it, it's a big event to us. And some of the statements on record about our race, if you go back and you get into the crazy things said, if you're looking at us now, you got the Europeans spread out over the whole top of the planet, and we can blow up the rest of the planet. We have so much weapons, and it's so outrageous, we can go take someone else's country we don't even need. It's really outrageous at only 10% of the planet. Any other time, we'd be in a lot of trouble. We'd be backed off in Northern Europe or something, fighting Muslims with spears and whatnot. But now it's just so ridiculous. No one can do anything with us, even though you got Anglosphere and most of Western civilization full of a bunch of self-hating, whiny animals. It is comedy when you think about it. It's just so ridiculous. But that is our green goddess. but if you were to go back in time, and at 1600, you would have a lot of people saying, well, the Great Plague wiped us out. The Muslims, we always have low birth rates. The Muslims are going to get us, so on and so forth, etc. But we just left everyone. And of course we had an expanding, extremely robust birth rate for a while there. Some European groups more so than others, but we've been expanding for hundreds of years now. But that is an overview of our green goddess. The technology behind it, there is going to be something called the technology of light. There's going to be a technology behind this stuff. You can just write that down. I do know that for a fact. I know the Russians have been dealing with some, as Russians were in a closed society, they were able to do stuff that we could never in a million years get away with. In other words, at Area 51, they probably do all kinds of crazy stuff, these government installations, but there's also a lot of cameras, a lot of people looking. In the Soviet Union, I mean, they just were so compartmentalized, and they had so much territory to do stuff with. United States is big, Russia's disgustingly big. And we will find out. When you start talking about the wild statements made about our race, let's say prior to World War II, you get into some really, really wild stuff. I won't even go into it, but about us starting to grow again or something like that. There's no end in sight to these crazy statements about our race. The challenge when you get into these, people that we accept as nut jobs making wild statements on the record about the Europeans are going to be giants again or something like that. Where does that go? Where's that coming from? Well, the problem when you get into crazy statements made by crazy Aryans is a certain percentage of them come out to be true. Sometimes it's stranger than we can imagine. I don't know, but that is an introduction to Green Goddess. Obviously, if you're in a spectrum of light, the spectrum of energy, if you will, that awoke in us in the 1680s, that became so much stronger in 1950. I mean, just look around the technology and look at a history book. I mean, we're already going off the planet, and who knows what they're really doing, because we know defense, military is always wide sky. It's always wide sky. Who knows what they're really up to? I mean, I have some ideals. But when you start talking about that same energy being millions and millions times stronger, just 50 years from now, well, we don't know. We don't know. We enter into unknowns. We don't know a whole lot about ourselves. But we're going to find out, that's for sure. But that's some, I guess you call it a mini primer on occult Aryan, the indigenous white rabbits of Europe and their occult history, or what's unknown. I don't know anything. I know the direction of truth goes if there is any, and that's the direction. The direction isn't something. It's like one of the wise men used to say, Horace, truth is not stranger than you imagine. Truth is stranger than you can imagine when it comes down to our race. So that's something to keep in mind as you come into 2012. Now, of course, since 1685, there's been a lot of pressure. Yeah, there has been a lot of pressure. Wars after wars, and the wars have gotten bigger. Yeah, there'll probably be one more big war. But sooner or later it'll all break and we'll get things underway. But I just wanted to give you that overview because that's something most of us don't think about. But if you're ever around other tribes, they're going to ask you. Yeah, Muslims will ask you about it. But I just call it the Green Goddess. We got our Godzilla out. We'll put her away for you. But we got to have her for us to survive, because our survival is not birth dependent. In other words, 80%, or maybe even 90%. I've seen it estimated at 95% of your Indo-European, the indigenous white rabbits of Europe, their survival is not based on birth rates. Like 95% of it is based on pure defense. In fact, all of our technological innovation, from the internet to is always tied to defense or defense-related companies. Even the internet came out down some defense contractors and scientists linked to defense contractors. It's always defense, defense, defense. Now, does that mean we're always looking for war? No, it just means our survival is based on is not based on breeding. I liken it to white sharks and seals. White sharks, they have high birth rates. They don't need them. You know, white sharks start having high birth rates, and you get jaws on your hands. But obviously, when you're spread out over the whole top of the planet,